Welcome to the Forever Better Academy podcast, where you will be given the principles, tools, and techniques to reach the next stage on your journey of self-mastery. Who could you become? I'm your host, Wade Vincent. They say, ask and you shall receive. But what happens when you ask the wrong questions? That's what I want to talk to you guys today about. So, my name is Wade Vincent. You are tuned in to the Forever Better Academy podcast. Now, ever since I was a little kid, as early as I can remember, I've been, like most kids, always fascinated. You know, you're trying to understand the environment that you've been thrust into and what it all means. So I've always been very question-centered in my approach to understanding my environment and my surroundings. So how else can you understand things if you don't ask how they operate, how they work? You know, you'll see, for those of you that are parents like myself, you'll be very familiar with those times when you'll have your little boy or your little girl will ask you something, and then you'll give them an answer and they'll reply with why. And then you'll answer that, and then they'll be like, why? And this just keeps going, and it almost becomes a fun game. I think sometimes, in my case, when my little boys have seen me get not frustrated, but just impatient with the line of questions, sometimes I know that they do it intentionally to play with me and press my buttons and mess with me a little bit sometimes, just to see what kind of answer that I can come up with for them. So like most children, you know, I think it's vital not to lose that that questioning, that why, understanding, right? So for me personally, it has always been a desire to really, as foolish as it sounds, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word, but I've always wanted to know everything, like everything I can. Just, I want to know why does this happen? Even the little things, especially from when I was a chef for many years, I beyond knowing how the cooking process would take place, or just the matter of you know the process to follow and to achieve the outcome of a recipe. I wanted to know, why does the food change when you add heat? What's happening on a molecular level? What is causing the change? Just really diving deep, you know, almost just nerding out, just super curious and intrigued, you know, and it served me well because it keeps you fascinated, and you don't ever take for granted the things around you because there's always more to understand. So I always had this desire to understand and know everything I can. But I think the underlying thing that comes from that is really me wanting to learn who I really am and where I fit in, like, the grand scheme of everything, you know, where I belong. Who am I in this universe, and what am I doing here? Why am I here? And how do I fit? How does it all come together, right? And like anything, you know, as I said in the past, one of my chefs that used to teach me, George, would always say, you can't speed the cooking process. And I've always liked that. It just stuck with me, and I feel like it's a really nice and succinct way to explain, you know, that things take time. So I think one thing that's happened as I've got older and evolved over the years is I've started to realize the importance of asking the right questions. So this is what I mean when I say, ask and you shall receive. But what happens if you ask the wrong questions? All right. So for many of you out there, you will know the difference that you will get when you ask a more refined or a more specific question, when you're really concise with the way that you ask your questions, you will get a far better, more superior answer and a response that is directly related to the level of question that you ask. So as you get older, you start to understand that you have so much to work from, right? So all the information and the experiences, the things that you have learned over time that are becoming part of who you are, and the collective experience that makes you you, it gives you that framework to build upon. So the questions as you get older and experience more things, your questions should evolve into more precise questioning that's going to lead you to the answer that you seek quickly, and also asking questions in an effective manner. So I even now I'm 38 years old, and I know that the questions that I ask now and the way I approach scenarios and situations that I'm trying to learn about is more advanced than the questions I asked when I was 28 years old. But then I also realize I can only ask the questions in a way that I comprehend them based on my experience. So perhaps I'm still not asking the right questions. What are the questions going to be like when I'm 48, 58, 68? What kind of questions will I be able to ask, and how will I be able to frame them that gives me a different or unique answer that can change or impact me in a unique, completely different way than anticipated or expected? So let's say, as an example, I put myself on the spot trying to think of a way to demonstrate. I'll think through it. Something will come to me. But so what I really wanted to think, as I said, being curious, constantly pushing my understanding by asking questions and navigating my environment, I realized that I know nothing. And I think that's something that I think it generally comes when, as you grow, especially, this is in my instance, as I was growing as a teenager, the times, as I think, when you sort of start to realize you're stepping into adulthood, and you feel that transition from being an adolescent, a young boy, where you start to realize your independence and your capabilities within the world, where you can step into adulthood and you have those freedoms and abilities to be independent and step out and achieve things in the world. It's exciting, and it's a moment where you start to feel a little bit of that ego kicks in, the cockiness, like, oh, I get it. I understand things now. And to an extent you do, because of, you can understand, as far as your experience allows you to. I I was just like, yeah, like I've got this. This is cool. I'm digging this man thing. I understand. Like I'm in control of my destiny and my outcomes, and in a relative sense, you are. And then there goes through, once you sort of step outside of that ego and that sort of young male bravado, you start to see, and you almost have this epiphany of realization that's, I think, is an important developmental stage. And I believe that, from the discussions I've had with my social group, that everyone does have this experience where you go beyond that ego and that cockiness, and the next stage is you have that epiphany that I don't know anything. I know this minute little piece that allows me to navigate my tiny little bubble in this grain of sand that is, swimming in an infinite ocean of possibilities. And then when you are humbled like that and you realize that, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, your, I don't know the word, positioning, your spatial awareness of how small you actually are. It's vital, because that's that moment it sort of clicks in your head and you're like, I really don't understand anything external to the little bubble that I've been living in, and um, you know uh, entertaining myself in, I guess you could say. Um, Once you have that moment where you realize you know nothing, it's almost like rocket fuel, in that it starts you to get more curious again. It's like it puts that fire back under you, because you've sort of stripped back that ego and you start to realize, I need to ask more questions. If I don't know anything, I've got a lot of things to learn. I need to navigate this new understanding of my environment and where I am currently in space and time. And how do I get to a point, especially as I said, for me wanting to know everything, how do I get to that point? How do I ask enough questions to help me to understand the new reality that I've been thrust into with age and time and experience? So once I got to that moment, I realized that I had to continue that never ending quest for knowledge and truth by asking questions in a different manner. If the questions that I've asked up until this point have served me, reasonably well and gotten me to this point, but that's as far as they've taken me, how do I then approach my line of questioning in a way that it's going to crack open that glass ceiling and allow me to reach a different stage in my development, and improve my ability to understand and grow, and then compound my knowledge and experience to ask better questions yet again. So it it got me, just thinking and firing, like the mind's just going like a thousand miles a minute. And I notice when I ask, and again, to use my children as an example, uh, it's very powerful. I think it's important. Just as a side note, when you have children, it's a beautiful experience in that it reminds you of your childhood, and you get to almost live it again and experience it again in that sense of wonder, and it's like a time machine. It takes you back to those moments when you were doing the same things, and it also, at the same time as bringing you back in time, also pushes you forward in time into the future, because you'd be amazed how much a child can teach you. And when I've asked my sons a simple question, like I might ask, what did you do at school today? And they'll give me, a kid answer. Nothing. uh, you know, Went to class. And those are perfect examples of what I'm talking about. Is those answers are directly proportionate to the caliber of question that I'm asking them. And it's not even a matter of the child not being able to articulate themselves in a way that is limited by their age or experience. It's really down to, I'm asking the wrong questions. The level of question that I'm asking is receiving a relevant level of answer. So I can say to my child, "What did you do at school today?" and get nothing. Or I could ask, "What was the most interesting thing that you learned about in school today?" that got you excited? Simple shift in the question. It's not a great deal different, but it's very precise, it's structured and targeted to draw out the answer that I'm seeking. Now, I could leave it to someone else, being my child or whoever it may be that I'm asking the question, to answer in a way that I'd like to receive and hope for the best. But what I do know in my limited 38 years of experience is that there are things that I can control and there are things that I can't control, and I might not be able to control the answer received from somebody, but I can control the way that I structure or word the question in such a way that the person answering is far more likely to give me the answer that I seek. So this is what I mean when I say, ask and you shall receive. But if you're not asking the question in the right way or the right question itself, you're not going to receive the answers that you're looking for. And it's a simple thing. It's very easy to overlook. It's easy. Everyone feels, we know how to ask questions all our lives. As I've said, we ask questions since we're little children. We ask questions because that's how we understand and navigate the environment we've been thrust into. And because we've been doing that since we were, virtually since the time that we could talk, it's easy to assume that we know how to we know how to ask questions, but it's something that's very easy to overlook. There are different ways to ask questions that will deliver different results and different answers. Very powerful once you start to realize your ability to control the narrative and ask questions and draw out the answers you seek. You've got to remember everything that you are looking for and everything that matters to you doesn't necessarily matter to others. If you're fascinated by something and intrigued, let's say, for example, you're an electrician and you're just in awe of the way that circuitry works and how electricity travels through conductive materials, and you're so excited, you want to know. And if you ask in a manner that doesn't necessarily benefit the person you're asking, they may not be as excited to answer the question as you are to receive the answer. Sometimes it helps to frame that question. Often I find, as I said, in my limited experience where I'm at this point in my life, if I can ask the question precisely and be structured and thoughtful with the way that I ask my questions, and combine that with the person whom I'm asking the question of, an excitement or an interest or something that they're motivated by, whether it be sort of pushing their buttons of reward or their joy in being able to help and inform me. I find that also helps draw out better answers to the questions that I ask as well. So I think that was probably the biggest conflict that I faced once I understood, when I got to that point. As I said, I realized I knew nothing. So I then took it upon myself to actively ask more relevant questions, more structured in what I was looking to draw from asking those questions, and then realizing the different ways to ask questions. And then that sort of led me to that point. Well, beyond knowing how to ask a question, what are the right questions to ask? And it just becomes like, this is my mind. I know this is crazy, but diving into rabbit holes, just how do you know the right questions to ask? Now, as far as I can tell, the best way is to use the feedback that you receive from the questions you ask, and take it on board. What are the answers that I'm getting? If I ask my child, how was school? What kind of response is he giving me compared to if I asked him, you know, what was the most exciting thing that you did at school today? Or, did your friends teach you anything exciting? I don't know, just, for argument's sake. But being more, as I said, more precise with the line of questions, and really listening to what I'm getting back, understanding that I'm putting out those feelers, almost like that echolocation, like I push out that signal, the vibrations, the sounds, what I'm asking the universe, what I'm asking, putting it out there. What's the feedback I'm receiving? What's coming back to me? And is it what I'm seeking? And how do I adjust and tweak? Because this is what it's all about. As you're all well aware with Forever Better Academy, it's all about perpetual growth. That's why the green evergreen infinity loop, it's perpetual, it's never ending, it's ongoing. How do I take those minor tweaks, build upon the compounding knowledge that I have gained over time, and use that to my advantage to improve the kind of questions that I'm asking? And the the most wonderful thing, is when I do that, I'm able to better navigate and get more relevant answers, and not only more relevant to what I'm asking, but also far quicker. So instead of, say, like, again, using my son as an example, if I ask him a basic, simple question about what happened during the day, how was your day? He might say good, and then I'll have to ask, why was it good? And then he'll say, I don't know. And I'll say, well, did you get to play outside? And he'll say, yes. And I'll be like, well, what did you play? So I've had to ask 4 or 5 questions to get an answer. So if I can refine my methodology and how I ask, I can also receive feedback faster, as I said, and more relevant to what I'm asking. And in doing that, that saves me time to then ask more questions and get a better understanding. As you're probably just like me, if you're listening to the podcast, I imagine that you seek knowledge. You have like a thirst for understanding and wanting to improve and become who you're meant to be. Who could you become? I say it every episode. It allows you a greater freedom to ask more questions. And when you start that, again, we've talked about this too in the past, the momentum, it just builds upon, it builds upon and builds upon and continues to do so. So it gets to a point where you're able to exponentially move yourself forward in a faster way, far greater than someone who's not asking the right questions. And who knows? God knows when I get to the next point where I realize what's beyond knowing nothing, where that leads and what kind of questions that draws out, and how that helps me to evolve on my journey of self-development, and where the next line of thought takes me. The most wonderful thing is, as I start to ask more, and I see, let's say, and I've used this as an analogy in the past. When I was a little kid, we had like in coloring books and puzzle books, and there was a puzzle thing called dot to dot. So it was an image that you couldn't quite make out what it was until you drew the lines that connected the dots in sequential order. So you just follow the numbers, and by the time you were done, you'd outlined and drew an image on the page. And I always found that fascinating, that it's a way for me to comprehend how I can see the bigger picture of the universe And the more dots that I find and connect through asking those questions that pull the curtain back, they allow me to see patterns, and they allow me to understand, to the extent that I can at this point in time, the workings of the universe, or my truths, as I experience them. And the more little dots that you start to see and piece together, and you're asking these questions and you're getting answer and answer and answer, it's thrilling. It's just this joyous experience of feeling like you're getting somewhere. You're starting to progress, and that's what life is about, All the times that I feel that I've had the lowest points or the most depressed points or anxious points in my life were the times when I wasn't asking questions, the times when I wasn't progressing and growing, and I was stagnating. And there's so much to be said for the ability to put together your experiences and your questioning and your understanding of things that move you forward and give you a sense of achievement, a sense of joy, a sense of wonder, curiosity that drives you forward. There's that instinctual thing, that internal life force that moves you. And if you can tap into that by asking the right questions and feeling that progress, there's nothing like it. I'm convinced it's the secret to, at least in my case, finding fulfillment and happiness and purpose is understanding. You have to be looking. You have to be seeking growth, and you can't receive unless you ask. And if you ask the right questions, you'll receive more than you ever dreamed possible. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope that you see some value and you've gained something, and there's been, ideas and concepts racing in your mind, and now you can take this and consider the way that you ask questions. Even if it's as simple as having more engaging conversations with your children. This is Wade Vincent, Forever Better Academy. New podcasts are released every Friday. If you like the content, please subscribe. You can find the podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. If you go to foreverbetteracademy.com/podcast, there are links to all the different platforms for you to subscribe to, and including the YouTube channel. And I look forward to our next conversation next Friday. And remember, who could you become? Talk to you guys again soon. See you later.